The bitter winter wind howled through the streets of Detroit as Officer adjusted his collar and glanced at his partner. Rex, his 4-year-old German Shepherd, sat alert in the passenger seat of the patrol car, his dark eyes scanning the darkness with the intensity that had made him one of the department's most decorated K-9 officers. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night in January, and the temperature had dropped to a bone-chilling 15 degrees. His radio suddenly crackled to life, shattering the relative quiet of their patrol. Unit 7 Charlie, we have a welfare check requested at 2847 Avenue. Apartment 3B. Anonymous caller reports possible abandoned child, crying heard for several days. Respond code 2. Stomach tightened. In his 8 years on the force, these calls always haunted him the most. Children in danger, there was nothing worse. He grabbed the radio. Unit 7 Charlie responding. ETA 4 minutes. Rex immediately sensed the shift in his partner's demeanor, his ears perking up as hit the lights and accelerated through the empty streets. They arrived at the Avenue complex within 3 minutes. The building loomed before them, a deteriorating 5-story structure that had seen better days decades ago. Broken windows on the upper floors were covered with cardboard, graffiti the entrance, and trash littered the parking lot. This was the kind of place where people minded their own business, where cries for help often went unanswered. And Rex approached the building, their breath visible in the freezing air. A few residents peered through curtains as they passed but quickly disappeared. The lobby door hung off one hinge. The elevator had an out-of-order sign that looked permanent, so they took the stairs to the 3rd floor. The stairwell reeked of urine and decay. Apartment 3B was at the end of a dimly lit hallway, knocked firmly. Detroit police, welfare check. Nothing. He knocked again, louder this time, still silence. He tried the doorknob, it turned easily. The door was unlocked. Exchanged a glance with Rex, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Police, I'm entering the residence. The moment the door swung open, an overwhelming stench hit them. Rotting garbage, spoiled food, human waste, and something else couldn't quite identify. He clicked on his flashlight and his body camera, illuminating a scene of absolute devastation. The apartment was a disaster zone. Empty liquor bottles covered every surface, clothes were strewn everywhere, dirty dishes were piled high in the sink with mold growing on them. The heat was off, making the inside temperature barely warmer than outside. "Hello, Detroit police. Anyone here?" called out, his voice echoing in the darkness. Then he heard it, a tiny, barely audible whimper coming from somewhere in the living room. His heart began to race. Rex's ears shot forward, detecting the sound immediately. Moved his flashlight across the room, and that's when he saw her. Huddled in the corner behind a torn, stained couch was the smallest child had ever seen on a call. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Her hair was matted and filthy, her face streaked with dirt and dried tears. She wore only a thin, soiled pink nightgown despite the freezing temperature. Her tiny body was skeletal, ribs visible through the thin fabric, arms like fragile twigs, cheeks sunken from severe malnutrition. She was clutching a stuffed teddy bear that was missing one eye and most of its fur. "Oh my God," whispered, his throat constricting. In all his years on the force, he'd seen many things, but this hit him differently. This was someone's baby, left alone to suffer and die. He immediately radioed for backup and emergency medical services. "Dispatch 7 Charlie. I have a critical situation. Female child, approximately 3 years old, signs of severe neglect and possible abandonment. Need EMS immediately and child protective services." His voice remained steady despite the rage and heartbreak churning inside him. Holstered his weapon and knelt down, trying to make himself less intimidating. "Hey there, sweetheart. I'm a police officer. I'm here to help you. You're safe now." The little girl didn't respond. Her huge blue eyes, dull with dehydration and trauma, simply stared at him with an expression that no child should ever wear: absolute hopelessness. Rex, trained to assist in search and rescue operations, instinctively moved forward to help. He'd found countless lost children during his career and had been trained to be gentle with them. But the moment Rex stepped into the little girl's line of sight, everything changed. The child's eyes went wide with terror. A blood-curdling scream erupted from her tiny throat, a sound of pure, primal fear that would hear in his nightmares for months to come. She scrambled backward, hitting the wall, trying desperately to make herself smaller, to disappear. Her screams turned to sobs, her whole body shaking violently. "Rex, stay," commanded immediately. Rex froze, confused. He'd never frightened a child before. His body camera captured every heartbreaking second, the terrified child, the concerned dog, the officer torn between them. "It's okay, baby. The dog won't hurt you. He's a good dog. He helps people. Rex, down. Stay." Rex immediately laid down and remained completely still, his training overriding his instinct to comfort the child. But Emma, as would later learn her name, couldn't be consoled. Her terror was absolute. She pressed herself against the wall, her screams now hoarse, her tiny hands held up as if to protect herself from an attack. Realized that in her traumatized state, Rex must have appeared as a monster, a massive, dark creature with teeth, emerging from the shadows of her nightmare. Moved Rex to another room, closing the door between them. Slowly, over the next 10 minutes, Emma's screams subsided into whimpers. Approached inch by inch, speaking in the softest voice he could manage, until he was finally close enough to wrap his coat around her tiny, freezing body. When the paramedics arrived, they were shocked by Emma's condition. "How long has she been alone?" one asked, checking her vital signs. Her temperature was dangerously low, her heart rate elevated, her blood pressure critical. "No idea," replied, his jaw clenched. "But based on the apartment condition and her state, I'd guess several days minimum." As the paramedics prepared to transport Emma to the hospital, she clutched finger with surprising strength. She still hadn't spoken a word, but her eyes, those haunted, ancient eyes in such a young face, locked onto his. In that moment made a silent promise. He would find whoever did this and they would face justice. The apartment investigation revealed horrifying details. No food in the refrigerator except moldy leftovers. The water had been shut off. Empty beer cans and drug paraphernalia littered the bedroom. And most damning, packed suitcases in the closet, suggesting the mother had planned to leave. On the kitchen counter, found an envelope with final notice stamped in red, an eviction notice dated a week earlier. Detective Sarah Williams arrived as was documenting the scene. She took one look at the apartment and shook her head in disgust. "Where's the mother?" Pointed to a photo on the wall, a young woman with hair holding a baby. "No idea. Neighbors say they haven't seen her in days. Security footage might tell us more." As Emma was loaded into the ambulance, still clutching that one-eyed teddy bear, stood in the cold night air watching the red lights disappear. Rex sat beside him, whining softly, somehow understanding the gravity of what they'd witnessed, placed his hand on Rex's head. "We saved her life tonight, partner, but I have a feeling her nightmares are just beginning." He had no idea how right he was, or how their paths would cross again in the most unexpected and beautiful way. That little girl, terrified of the dog who'd helped save her, would one day call that same dog her hero. But that was still months away, and the road ahead would be harder than anyone could imagine. The investigation into Emma's abandonment was just beginning, and the shocking truth about what happened would soon send ripples through the entire community. Detective Sarah Williams had been with the Detroit Police Department for 15 years, specializing in crimes against children. She'd seen things that would break most people, but she'd learned to channel her anger into relentless pursuit of justice. When she opened Emma's case file at 7:00 a.m. the morning after the rescue, sitting at her cluttered desk with cold coffee in hand, she felt that familiar fire ignite in her chest. The preliminary medical report made her hands shake with rage. Emma weighed only 23 pounds, at least 10 pounds underweight for a 3-year-old. She was suffering from severe dehydration, malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, and had multiple bruises in various stages of healing across her small body. The attending physician at Children's Hospital had noted possible developmental delays due to prolonged neglect and trauma. Emma hadn't spoken a single word since her rescue and flinched violently at any sudden movement. Sarah studied the crime scene photos from the apartment. Each image told a story of complete abandonment: the empty refrigerator, the disconnected utilities, the filth, the evidence of drug use. But it was the packed suitcases in the closet that made Sarah's blood boil. This wasn't accidental neglect. This was premeditated abandonment. Someone had planned to leave that baby girl to die alone. Her first stop was the Avenue apartment complex. The building manager, a tired-looking man named Carl, met her in the lobby. "I've been managing this place for 12 years, Carl said, shaking his head. "Never seen anything like this. Moved in about 2 years ago with the kid. Paid rent on time the first year, then things went downhill fast." "Tell me about," Sarah prompted, her pen poised over her notepad. Carl sighed. "Started out okay. Single mom, seemed to be trying. But then the boyfriend showed up, some guy named Jake or Jason, I don't remember. After that, things changed. Loud parties, complaints from neighbors, missed rent payments. I served her an eviction notice 3 weeks ago. Haven't seen her since then." Sarah interviewed every resident on the 3rd floor. Most claimed they minded their own business, but an elderly woman named Mrs. who lived in 3C finally broke down. "I heard that baby crying," she sobbed, wringing her hands. "For days I heard her. I almost called, but—" She trailed off, unable to finish. "I should have called sooner. I'll never forgive myself." "When did you first notice something was wrong?" Sarah asked gently. "Maybe 5-6 days ago. The crying started out loud, then got weaker and weaker. By the last day, it was just little whimpers. I thought maybe the mother was home and taking care of her, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. I finally called the police anonymously. I was afraid of retaliation." Sarah patted the woman's hand. "You saved that little girl's life. Your call brought help when she needed it most." The building's security footage provided crucial evidence. Sarah spent hours reviewing grainy video from the lobby camera. On January 14th at 3:42 p.m., she watched exit the building with a large suitcase, a backpack, and a tall man with a sleeve of tattoos. They were laughing. Never looked back at the building, never hesitated, never showed any concern for the child she was leaving behind. They climbed into a beat-up sedan and drove away. Sarah froze the frame on's face. The woman was young, probably mid-20s, with bleached hair and hollow cheeks that suggested drug use. She looked nothing like the woman in the apartment photos from 2 years earlier. Those showed a healthy, smiling mother holding a baby Emma. Whatever had happened in those 2 years had transformed into someone capable of abandoning her own child. Running's information through the system revealed a troubling history. 2 arrests for possession in the past 18 months, multiple unpaid traffic tickets, 3 different addresses in 2 years. Her last known employer, a diner on the east side, reported she'd stopped showing up for work 6 months ago. The boyfriend's name was Jake, and his record was even worse: assault, theft, drug dealing, and a warrant out for his arrest in Ohio. Sarah put out an APB for both and Jake, flagging them as priority suspects in a child endangerment case. Then she contacted phone companies, credit card companies, and social media platforms. His digital footprint would eventually lead Sarah to her. People like always made mistakes. 3 days later, Sarah got the break she needed. Had used her credit card at a motel in Las Vegas. Sarah immediately contacted Nevada police and arranged for surveillance. Within 24 hours, local officers spotted Jake at a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city, high as kites and completely oblivious to the fact that their world was about to come crashing down. Sarah took the first flight to Las Vegas, arriving early morning with arrest warrants in hand. The Nevada officers had eyes on the motel room. "They've been in there partying for hours," one officer told her. "Loud music, people coming and going. They have no idea we're watching." At 6:00 a.m., they moved in. Sarah wanted to be the one to confront personally. The door crashed open, and officers flooded the room. Was passed out on the bed, drug paraphernalia scattered everywhere. Jake tried to run through the bathroom window but was quickly tackled. Sarah stood over as other officers roused her awake. Eyes struggled to focus, her words slurred. What's going on? You can't just... You're under arrest for child endangerment, criminal neglect, and abandonment, Sarah said coldly, reading her rights. Your daughter Emma was found alone in your apartment, nearly dead from dehydration and starvation. For just a moment something flickered in his eyes. Was it guilt, fear? But it vanished quickly, replaced by defiance. She was fine when I left. I was only gonna be gone a few days. This is bullshit. You can't prove anything. Sarah leaned in close, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. You left her for 4 days without food, water, or heat in freezing weather. She weighed 23 pounds. She couldn't even cry anymore by the time we found her. I have security footage of you leaving with suitcases, laughing. You left your baby to die, and you're going to prison for a very long time. The color drained from his face. The reality of what she'd done and what she was facing finally began to sink in. She was processed, fingerprinted, and extradited back to Michigan within 48 hours. Back in Detroit, Prosecutor James reviewed the case with Sarah. Was a 20-year veteran of the DA's office with a reputation for being tough on child abuse cases. He read through the evidence, his expression growing darker with each page. This is one of the worst cases I've seen, he said finally. We're going for maximum penalties. Child endangerment, abandonment, criminal neglect. She's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted. What about the boyfriend? Sarah asked. He'll be charged as an accessory but is the mother. She had the legal responsibility and she consciously chose to abandon her child. That's what will hammer home to the jury. Meanwhile, Emma had been placed in emergency foster care with David Johnson, a couple in their 40s who had been fostering children for over a decade. Was a retired elementary school teacher, and David worked as an accountant. They'd fostered 15 children over the years, providing temporary safe havens for kids in crisis. But Emma was unlike any child they'd ever cared for. She arrived at their comfortable suburban home with nothing but the clothes on her back and that tattered teddy bear. She wouldn't make eye contact. She wouldn't speak. When tried to offer her food, a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Emma grabbed it and shoved the entire thing in her mouth at once, choking in her desperation to eat. Sweetheart, slow down, said gently, tears streaming down her face. There's more. You can have as much as you want. You're safe now. But Emma didn't understand safe. She hoarded food under her pillow. She woke up screaming every night at 2:00 a.m., the same time every night, as if her body remembered the loneliest hours of her abandonment. She wouldn't let anyone touch her, and dogs, any dog, anywhere, sent her into absolute panic. David had to temporarily rehome their elderly golden retriever with his sister because Emma's reaction was so severe. Just seeing the dog through the window would trigger a full meltdown, screaming, hyperventilating, scratching at her own arms until they bled. Scheduled an emergency appointment with Dr. Martinez, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. Dr. Martinez met Emma in a toy-filled office designed to feel safe and non-threatening. Emma sat in the corner, clutching her teddy bear, her eyes distant. She's experiencing severe post-traumatic stress disorder, Dr. Martinez explained to after the session. The abandonment, the neglect, the terror of being alone, it's created deep psychological wounds, and the presence of the police dog during her rescue has created a specific phobia. In her traumatized mind, dogs represent danger, not safety. This is going to take time, patience, and intensive therapy. How long? Asked. Dr. Martinez shook her head slowly. Months, maybe years. And there's something else you need to prepare for. Emma will have to provide testimony for the trial. Reliving that trauma could set back any progress we make. As news of Emma's case spread through Detroit, the community, donations poured in for her care. Local news stations covered the story, showing the apartment where she'd been found, and the public outcry was immense. People wanted justice for the little girl who'd been left to die. Arraignment was held 2 weeks after her arrest. Sarah sat in the courtroom, watching as was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair unwashed, her face gaunt. Judge Helen reviewed the charges, and when pleaded not guilty, Sarah felt her jaw clench. Not guilty. After everything, she still wouldn't take responsibility. The trial was set for 6 months out, giving both sides time to prepare. But Sarah knew the real challenge wasn't building the case. The evidence was overwhelming. The challenge would be helping Emma heal enough to eventually face what had happened to her. As Sarah drove past the Avenue apartment complex that evening, she looked up at apartment 3B. The windows were dark now, yellow police tape still across the door. But she could almost hear the echoes of a little girl's cries, ignored for far too long. "Justice is coming, Emma," Sarah whispered to herself. "I promise you that." But as the trial preparation began, nobody could predict the unexpected twist that would transform Emma's tragedy into something miraculous, a story of healing that would touch thousands of hearts. 8 weeks had passed since that freezing January night when Rex had found Emma. The case haunted in ways he hadn't expected. He'd been a police officer long enough to develop emotional armor, but something about that little girl's terrified screams when she saw Rex had pierced through his defenses. He found himself thinking about her constantly, wondering if she was okay, if she was healing, if she'd ever understand that Rex had been there to help her, not hurt her. Rex seemed to sense inner turmoil. The German Shepherd had been unusually subdued since that night, as if he too carried the weight of Emma's fear. K9 officers often formed bonds with their partners that transcended the typical human-animal relationship, and Rex understood more than most people realized. He'd found dozens of lost children during his 4 years of service, and each reunion had been joyful. But not this one. This one ended in screams and terror. It was a Tuesday evening in March when everything changed, and Rex were finishing their shift, patrolling the downtown corridor around 9:30 p.m. The streets were relatively quiet, the cold keeping most people indoors. Was thinking about heading home, maybe ordering Chinese food and watching the game, when the radio exploded with urgency. All units. Armed robbery in progress at Quick Stop Convenience, corner of 5th and Madison. Suspect is armed with a knife, currently fleeing on foot eastbound on Madison. White male, approximately 6 feet, wearing black hoodie and jeans. Considered dangerous. Straining kicked in instantly. Unit 7 Charlie responding. We're 2 blocks west, moving to intercept. He flipped on his lights and sirens, his heart rate accelerating. Rex immediately stood at attention in the passenger seat, his body tense and ready. This was what they trained for. Spotted the suspect almost immediately, a man running full speed down Madison Avenue, clutching something against his chest. "That's him," radioed. "Suspect spotted, I'm in pursuit." He pulled the car ahead and jumped out, Rex leaping out beside him with practiced precision. "Police, stop right there," shouted, his weapon drawn. The suspect, later identified as Danny Reeves, a desperate addict with a rap sheet spanning 2 pages, spun around. His eyes were wild, pupils dilated, sweat pouring down his face despite the cold. In his right hand he clutched a hunting knife with a 7-inch blade, still stained with the blood of the store clerk he'd stabbed during the robbery. "Stay back, I'll cut you, man, I swear I'll do it," Danny screamed, waving the knife erratically. He'd backed himself into an alley with no exit, a fatal mistake. Other units were converging, their sirens getting closer. Kept his weapon trained on Danny, his voice calm but authoritative. "Danny, there's nowhere to go. Put the knife down. Nobody else needs to get hurt tonight. We can end this peacefully." No way, I'm not going back to prison." Danny's hand was shaking violently, the knife catching the streetlight with each movement. He was cornered, desperate, and high, the most dangerous combination possible. For a moment, everything seemed suspended in time. Could hear his own heartbeat, feel the cold air burning his lungs, see the other officers arriving at the alley entrance behind him. Then Danny made his decision. With a guttural scream of desperation, he charged directly at, the knife raised high. Had a split-second choice, shoot or risk hand-to-hand combat. But before he could make that decision, Rex made it for him. The German Shepherd launched himself through the air with the explosive power that had made him one of the department's elite K-9 officers. 80 pounds of muscle, teeth, and absolute loyalty propelled toward the threat to his partner. Rex hit Danny mid-stride, his jaws clamping onto the man's knife arm. But Danny, pumped full of adrenaline and methamphetamine, didn't go down. Instead, with his free hand, he brought the knife around in a vicious arc. The blade plunged deep into Rex's left shoulder, just above his front leg, sinking nearly 4 inches into muscle and tissue. "No!" anguished scream echoed through the alley. Rex yelped, a sound of pain that had never heard from his partner in 4 years, but didn't release his grip. Even as blood poured from the wound, Rex held on, preventing Danny from stabbing. Other officers rushed in, tackling Danny and wrestling him to the ground. The knife clattered across the pavement, but wasn't paying attention to the arrest. He was on his knees beside Rex, his hands pressing against the wound as bright red blood pumped between his fingers. "Rex, no. Stay with me, buddy, stay with me." His voice cracked, tears streaming down his face. Rex's eyes were glazed with pain, his breathing rapid and shallow. The amount of blood was terrifying, pooling on the cold asphalt, soaking through his uniform. "Officer down. K-9 down. We need emergency veterinary support now," screamed into his radio. His hands were shaking as he applied pressure to the wound, but the blood kept coming. Rex whimpered, trying to lick his face in what seemed like reassurance even in his agony. "You saved my life," whispered, his forehead pressed against Rex's. "You're the best partner I've ever had. Don't you dare leave me, don't you dare." Sergeant Mike Johnson appeared beside his own face pale. "Ambulance is coming, but the nearest emergency vet is faster. We're taking him now. Come on." Together, they carefully lifted Rex and placed him in the back of a patrol car. Climbed in with him, cradling Rex's head in his lap as another officer drove, lights and sirens blazing, toward Oakland Veterinary Emergency Hospital. The 10-minute drive felt like an eternity. Kept talking to Rex the entire time, his voice a lifeline. "Remember when we found that lost kid in the park? You tracked him for 2 miles through the woods. And that time you sniffed out that meth lab in the warehouse. You're a hero, Rex. You've saved so many lives. Now it's my turn to save you." Rex's eyes never left his face, even as his breathing grew more labored. By the time they screeched into the veterinary hospital parking lot, Rex's gums were pale, his body starting to go into shock from blood loss. The emergency veterinary team was already waiting, having been alerted by dispatch. They rushed Rex into surgery immediately. Dr. Sarah, the chief veterinary surgeon, gave a grim assessment before disappearing through the surgical doors. The knife severed major blood vessels and damaged the brachial nerve plexus. We're looking at potentially permanent nerve damage to his front leg. The next few hours are critical. If we can stabilize him and control the bleeding, he has a chance. Stood in the waiting room, his uniform soaked in Rex's blood, his hands still trembling. The rest of his unit arrived, Captain, Sergeant Johnson, and half a dozen other officers who'd worked with Rex over the years. Nobody spoke much. They all understood the bond between K-9 officers and their partners. The surgery took 6 hours and 47 minutes, counted every single minute. He refused to sit, refused to eat, refused to change out of his blood-soaked uniform. He just paced, prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in, and replayed that moment in the alley over and over. If he'd just taken the shot a second earlier. If he'd positioned himself differently. If. Finally, Doctor emerged, her surgical scrub stained with blood, exhaustion evident in her eyes. Heart stopped. "He made it through surgery," she said, and felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "But the damage was extensive. We were able to repair the blood vessels and stabilize him, but the nerve damage is severe. The knife severed several major nerves in his shoulder and front leg." "What does that mean?" asked, though he already knew the answer. Doctor's expression was sympathetic but honest. "It means his left front leg has significantly impaired function. With months of physical therapy, he might regain some mobility, but he'll never have full use of it again. His days as an active police K9 are over. I'm sorry." The words hit like a physical blow. Rex's career, the thing that gave him purpose, that made him the incredible dog he was finished at just 4 years old. German Shepherds could work until they were 8 or 9. Rex should have had years ahead of him. "Can I see him?" Voice was barely a whisper. "He's in recovery. You can sit with him." Was led to a quiet recovery room where Rex lay on a padded mat, his left leg heavily bandaged, an IV line running into his right leg, his breathing aided by an oxygen mask. Knelt beside him, tears flowing freely now. He gently placed his hand on Rex's head, careful to avoid the surgical sites. "Hey, partner," he whispered. "You did good. You saved my life. I'm so proud of you." Rex's tail managed a weak thump against the mat. Even in his drugged, post-surgical state, he recognized his partner's voice. Made a decision in that moment, one that would change both their lives. "When you're recovered, we're done. Both of us. I'm putting in for early retirement. You've given everything to this job, and I'm not letting you face this alone. We're going to figure out what comes next together." Over the next 3 days, the story of Rex's heroism spread like wildfire through Detroit. The local news picked it up first: hero police dog stabbed while saving officer, complete with dramatic footage from the scene and interviews with witnesses. Then regional news stations covered it. Within a week, it had gone national. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. The police department was flooded with flowers, cards, and donations for Rex's medical care. Elementary school classes sent handmade posters with messages like, "Get well soon, Hero Rex," and "We love you, brave dog." Children's drawings covered the walls of office, pictures of Rex with capes, Rex with medals, Rex surrounded by hearts. One envelope caught attention. Inside was a simple drawing done in crayon, a large dog with a bandage on his leg, a heart drawn on his chest, and the words "Get well, Hero Dog" written in shaky letters. It was signed "Love, Anonymous." Something about the drawing touched deeply. He kept it in his uniform pocket, pulling it out to look at it during the long hours sitting by Rex's bedside. What he couldn't possibly know, was that the drawing had come from Emma's foster home, had been helping Emma with art therapy, and when Emma saw the story about Rex on the news, something had shifted in her eyes. She'd asked to help her make a card for the hurt doggy. It was the first time Emma had shown any interest in a dog without fear. Rex's recovery was slow and painful. Physical therapy sessions made him whimper, the exercises to regain even partial use of his leg clearly uncomfortable. But Rex was a fighter. Day by day he improved. After 2 weeks he could stand. After 4 weeks he could walk with a pronounced limp. After 6 weeks, doctor delivered her final assessment. "He's made remarkable progress," she told. "He can walk, even run a bit, though he'll never have his former agility. He's pain-free now and adjusting to his limited mobility. But you need to understand, he can never return to active K9 duty. The physical demands would be too much, and the risk of re-injury is too high." Nodded, his hand resting on Rex's head. "I know, we're both retiring, it's time." The Detroit Police Department scheduled an official retirement ceremony for Rex. It would be a bittersweet day, honoring a hero's service while acknowledging that his days in uniform were over, but was at peace with the decision. Rex had given everything to protect others. Now it was time for a quieter life. What neither of them realized was that their quieter life was about to intersect with a little girl's healing journey in the most unexpected and beautiful way possible. The hero who had been wounded saving others would soon save one more life, not through his strength or his training, but through his gentle heart and his capacity to heal wounds that went far deeper than physical scars. Rex's story of sacrifice was about to become part of a much bigger story, one that would prove heroes come in all forms, and healing can happen in the most unexpected ways. 3 months had passed since Emma had been placed in David Johnson's home, and the couple was emotionally and physically exhausted. Sat at her kitchen table at 3:00 a.m., her third cup of coffee growing cold, listening to Emma's screams echoing from upstairs. It was the same every night, 2:00 a.m. like clockwork. The little girl would wake up shrieking, reliving whatever horrors haunted her dreams. David appeared in the doorway, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. "Same time again," he said quietly. "Her internal clock is stuck on that night." Wiped tears from her eyes. They'd fostered 15 children over the years, helped dozens of traumatized kids find their way back to normalcy. But Emma was different. Emma was breaking them. She slowly climbed the stairs to Emma's room, a space they decorated with soft pink walls, stuffed animals, and fairy lights, trying to create a sanctuary of safety and childhood innocence. But Emma barely noticed the decorations. She sat in the corner of her bed, clutching that one-eyed teddy bear, her tiny body rigid with terror, her eyes wide and unseeing. "Sweetheart, it's okay. You're safe. It was just a bad dream," whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. She'd learned not to touch Emma during these episodes. Any physical contact would make the panic worse. Emma's breathing was rapid, her small chest heaving. "Dark," she whimpered. "So dark. Nobody came. Nobody came." These were the only words she ever spoke during her nightmares, a heartbreaking mantra that revealed the depths of her abandonment trauma. His heart shattered a little more each night. "Someone did come, honey. Officer came. He saved you. You're safe now." But Emma couldn't hear her. She was trapped in that apartment again, alone in the dark, crying for a mother who never returned. The days weren't much better. Emma had started speaking again, simple words and short sentences, but her affect was flat, her eyes distant. She moved through the house like a ghost, always alert, always watching, as if waiting for the world to betray her again. She hoarded food obsessively, would find crackers hidden under Emma's pillow, granola bars stuffed in her toy box, fruit snacks tucked into her shoes. "It's heartbreaking," told Dr. Martinez during one of their weekly consultation calls. "I put a plate of food in front of her, and she grabs it like someone's going to take it away. She eats so fast she makes herself sick. I tell her there's more, that she can have as much as she wants, but she doesn't believe me." Dr. Martinez sighed. Food insecurity creates lasting psychological impacts. Emma's brain is stuck in survival mode. She experienced severe deprivation at a critical developmental stage. Trust in people, in the world, in basic security has been fundamentally damaged. The therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez revealed the extent of Emma's trauma. The psychologist's office was designed to be child-friendly, filled with toys, art supplies, and comfortable cushions. But Emma showed little interest in playing. She would sit in the corner with her teddy bear, sometimes drawing, mostly just staring into space. Dr. Martinez used play therapy techniques, art therapy, and gentle conversation to try reaching the little girl. Progress was measured in millimeters. After 4 weeks of sessions, Emma finally drew something other than dark scribbles, gasped when Dr. Martinez showed her the picture. It was a child's drawing, crude but clear in its message. A tiny stick figure with yellow hair cowered in the corner of a box, the apartment. Looming over the figure was a massive black shape with sharp white triangles for teeth and glowing eyes. The monster. "She's drawn this exact picture 7 times now," Dr. Martinez explained, her voice heavy with concern. "This is how Emma sees that night. In her traumatized mind, the police dog isn't a rescuer, he's the monster from her nightmare. She's conflated Rex with the terror of her abandonment. But Rex was there to help her, protested. How do we make her understand that? That's the challenge with childhood trauma. Emma's 3-year-old brain couldn't process the complexity of that night. She was alone, terrified, suffering, and then this huge dog appeared in her darkest moment. Her brain associated Rex with danger, not safety. That association is now deeply embedded. The fear of dogs had become all-consuming. Emma couldn't watch TV shows with dogs. She couldn't look at books with dog pictures. When tried to walk Emma to the park, any dog, no matter how small or friendly, would send Emma into a full panic attack. She would scream, hyperventilate, and scratch at her own arms until they bled, trying to create a different pain to escape the psychological terror. David had been forced to rehome their elderly golden retriever, Buddy, with his sister across town. It broke their hearts, but Emma's reaction to the gentle old dog had been so severe that they had no choice. The first morning Emma saw Buddy through the window, she'd screamed for 45 minutes straight, then didn't speak for 2 days. One particularly difficult afternoon in late April attempted to take Emma to a playground. The spring weather was beautiful, and Emma needed fresh air and interaction with other children. For the first 20 minutes, things went well. Emma cautiously explored the play equipment, even managing a small smile when she went down the slide. Then a family arrived with a small Cocker Spaniel on a leash. The dog was across the playground, easily 50 feet away, but Emma saw it. Her body went rigid. Her face turned white. Saw the panic building and rushed over, but it was too late. Emma's screams pierced the peaceful afternoon. She ran blindly, not looking where she was going, and crashed into a bench, splitting her lip open. Blood poured down her chin as she continued to scream, "Monster! Monster! Make it go away!" The family with the dog quickly left, apologizing profusely. Other parents stared. A teenager recorded the meltdown on his phone until shouted at him to stop. She scooped Emma up, something she rarely did because Emma hated being restrained, and carried her to the car while the little girl fought and screamed the entire way. At home, after Emma had finally exhausted herself and fallen into a fitful sleep, broke down completely. David found her sobbing at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "I love her so much, but I don't know how to help her. We're failing her, David. Every day she's with us, she's still trapped in that nightmare. What if we're not enough? What if she never heals?" David wrapped his arms around his wife, his own tears falling. "We'll figure it out. We have to." That evening called Dr. Martinez at home, something she'd never done before. "We're at a breaking point. Emma's getting worse, not better. The dog phobia is completely debilitating. We can't take her anywhere. She can't be around other children because so many families have pets. She's isolating herself more each day. I need you to tell me honestly, is she going to be okay? Can a child this traumatized ever truly heal?" Dr. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "I'm going to be honest with you. Emma's case is one of the most severe I've encountered in 20 years of practice. The combination of abandonment trauma, neglect, and the specific phobia she's developed is extremely challenging. Traditional therapy is helping, but it's not enough. We need to try something different." "Like what?" "There's a therapeutic approach called exposure therapy, but it has to be done very carefully with someone so young and traumatized. The idea is to help Emma gradually confront her fear in a safe, controlled environment. But here's the controversial part. I think Emma needs to confront the actual source of her fear." His blood ran cold. "You mean Rex, the actual dog from that night?" "I know it sounds extreme, but Emma has created a monster in her mind that doesn't match reality. Rex is a trained, gentle therapy dog now that he's retired from active duty. If we could help Emma see that Rex isn't a monster, that he's actually a kind, safe dog who was there to help her, it could be the breakthrough she needs. Or it could traumatize her even more," said, her voice shaking. Yes, that's the risk. That's why I'm bringing this to you first. I need to research this more, consult with colleagues, maybe reach out to officer to see if he'd even be willing. This is not a decision we make lightly. That night couldn't sleep. She checked on Emma every hour, watching the little girl's restless sleep, seeing the fear that never quite left her face even in unconsciousness. Emma's biological mother's trial was approaching. His lawyer had indicated that Emma might need to testify in some capacity. The thought of putting this fragile child through a trial was unbearable. The next morning, during her session with Emma, Dr. Martinez tried a new approach. She showed Emma photographs of different dogs, therapy dogs working with children, service dogs helping people, search and rescue dogs finding lost hikers. Emma, I want to show you something. These are helper dogs. They're trained to be gentle and kind. They help people who are hurt or lost or scared. Emma barely glanced at the photos, but she didn't scream or run away. That was progress, however small. The big dog you saw that night, Rex, he's a helper dog. He finds children who are lost. That's his job. He wasn't trying to scare you. He was trying to help you. Emma's small voice, barely a whisper. He was so big, so scary. I know he seemed scary, but what if I told you that Rex got hurt? A bad man hurt him with a knife and now Rex can't work anymore. He's not a scary police dog now. He's just a regular dog who helps people feel better. Emma looked up, something flickering in her eyes. The doggy got hurt. Yes, he was very brave, just like he was brave when he found you. He saved his friend, just like he helped save you. For the first time, Emma seemed to process the idea that Rex might not be the monster from her nightmares. It was a tiny crack in the wall of her fear, but it was something. Over the next 2 weeks, Dr. Martinez worked carefully to reshape Emma's understanding of that night. She used dolls and toys to act out the rescue, showing Emma that she'd been alone and afraid, and that Rex had come to help her, not hurt her. She showed Emma more pictures of Rex, recent photos from news articles about his retirement, showing him looking calm and friendly, his injured leg in a brace. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Emma's drawings began to change. The black monster with teeth became slightly smaller. In one drawing, it had a bandage on its leg. In another, it had a small smile instead of sharp teeth. Notice the shift. She asked me yesterday if the hurt doggy was okay, she told Dr. Martinez, wonder in her voice. She's never asked about a dog before without panicking. Dr. Martinez took a deep breath. I think it's time. I've contacted Officer and he's willing to participate. He understands the risk, but he wants to help. If we're going to try this exposure therapy, we need to do it before the trial, before Emma has to relive her trauma again in testimony. Felt fear and hope warring in her chest. When? Next week. We'll do it at a neutral location, highly controlled, with both of us present and a plan to stop immediately if Emma shows signs of severe distress. This could change everything for her, or it could set us back, but I truly believe it's worth the risk. That night told Emma that they were going to meet someone special next week, a friend who wants to say hello to you. Emma looked up from her teddy bear. What friend? Knelt down to Emma's level, her heart pounding. Do you remember the helper dog we talked about, the one who got hurt? His name is Rex. He'd like to meet you, but only if you want to. You don't have to be scared. He's very gentle now. Emma's eyes widened, fear and curiosity mixing on her small face. The big doggy from the dark night. Yes, honey, but he's not scary. He wants to show you that he's nice. Would you like to meet him? Emma was quiet for a long moment, her thumb in her mouth, a habit she'd developed since the rescue. Finally, in the smallest voice imaginable, she whispered, maybe. That one word, maybe, represented more progress than 3 months of therapy had achieved. Held Emma close, praying that this gamble would heal rather than harm the precious little girl in her arms. The meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday, 5 days away. 5 days that would feel like an eternity, filled with hope and terror in equal measure. Everything hung in the balance: Emma's healing, her future, her ability to trust again. Just hope they were making the right choice. The stage was set for a meeting that would either shatter Emma completely or begin to put the pieces of her broken heart back together. Sometimes the path to healing requires walking straight through the source of our deepest fears. Dr. Martinez stared at the newspaper clipping on her desk for the 100th time that week. The headline read, "Hero Police Dog Retires After Saving Officer's Life." The photo showed Rex, his left front leg in a supportive brace, sitting beside Officer at a small retirement ceremony. Despite his injury, Rex's eyes were gentle and kind, the eyes of a dog who had spent his career helping people, not hurting them. Had been a child psychologist for 22 years. She'd worked with hundreds of traumatized children, pioneered new therapeutic techniques, published research papers, and given lectures at universities across the country. But Emma's case had her questioning everything she thought she knew about trauma treatment. Traditional approaches weren't working. The little girl was stuck, trapped in a nightmare that replayed every night at 2:00 a.m., unable to move forward because her fear had become a prison. As sat in her quiet office after hours, reviewing Emma's case files, a radical idea began to form, one that could either be brilliant or disastrous. What if the very source of Emma's trauma could become the key to her healing? What if the monster in her nightmares could transform into her protector? It was unconventional, risky, and potentially controversial among her colleagues, but sometimes conventional wisdom wasn't enough. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd obtained through the police department's victim services coordinator. After 3 rings, a man's voice answered. "Officer speaking." "Officer, my name is Dr. Martinez. I'm a child psychologist working with Emma, the little girl you and Rex rescued 3 months ago." There was a pause, then his voice came back, heavy with emotion. "How is she? I've thought about her every day since that night. The way she screamed when she saw Rex." He couldn't finish the sentence. "That's actually why I'm calling. Emma is safe and in foster care, but she's struggling significantly with trauma. Specifically, she's developed a severe phobia of dogs that's preventing her from healing and functioning normally. Officer, I know this will sound unusual, but I'd like to discuss the possibility of arranging a meeting between Emma and Rex." The silence on the other end lasted so long that thought the call had dropped. Finally spoke, his voice careful. "Doctor, with all due respect, that sounds like it could traumatize her even more. She was terrified of Rex. I've never seen a child react to him that way. What makes you think seeing him again would help?" Took a deep breath. Because right now, Emma has created a monster in her mind that doesn't match reality. She's attached all the terror of her abandonment, the darkness, the hunger, the fear to Rex's image. In her 3-year-old brain, Rex represents everything bad that happened that night. But what if we could help her understand that Rex wasn't part of the bad things, that he was actually there to save her, that he's gentle and kind and safe? "You're talking about exposure therapy," said slowly. "I've heard of it for phobias, but isn't that dangerous with someone so young and traumatized?" "It is dangerous. It's a calculated risk, which is why I'm calling you first, before I even fully present this to her foster parents or my supervisors. I need to know, is Rex temperamentally suited for this kind of work? How is he doing after his injury? And more importantly, would you be willing to participate if we decide to move forward?" Was quiet again and could hear him breathing, thinking. Rex has been through his own recovery journey these past months. The nerve damage to his leg is permanent, but he's adapted. And honestly, doctor, I think losing his job has been harder on him than the physical injury. He was born to help people. Since he retired, I've noticed him getting depressed. He just lies around the house, staring out the window like he's waiting for his next call. There's actually research showing that retired working dogs benefit enormously from having continued purpose, said. What you're describing is common. Rex spent 4 years with a clear mission, Find people, help people, save people. Now that's been taken away. So you're saying this could help both of them, Emma and Rex? Voice had shifted, becoming more interested. Potentially, yes, but I want to be completely honest with you about the risks. If this goes wrong, it could reinforce Emma's fear and make her condition worse. It could also be stressful for Rex. There's a possibility Emma might scream or panic when she sees him, which could be confusing or upsetting for him. This isn't a decision to make lightly. Was silent for a moment. Can I think about it? Talk to Rex's veterinarian and maybe consult with some K9 trainers I know. I want to help, doctor, but I need to make sure we're not setting either of them up for more trauma. Of course, take a few days. I'm going to do the same, consult with colleagues, review the literature, develop a detailed safety protocol. If we do this, it needs to be done perfectly. Over the next 3 days, immersed herself in research. She consulted with trauma specialists across the country, including a colleague in Boston who had successfully used therapy dogs with traumatized children, though never the actual dog associated with the trauma. She reviewed every study on exposure therapy, pediatric PTSD treatment, and animal-assisted therapy she could find. The evidence was mixed. Some researchers warned that exposure therapy with very young children could cause. Others showed promising results when done carefully. But nobody had documentation of a case quite like Emma's, where the therapeutic tool was the actual source of the fear. Meanwhile was doing his own research. He took Rex to see Dr. Sarah, the veterinarian who had saved Rex's life. "I need your professional opinion," he told her, explaining the situation. "Is Rex physically and emotionally capable of this kind of work?" Doctor examined Rex carefully, watching how he moved, checking his temperament, observing his reactions. Physically, he's stable. The leg limits his mobility, but he's pain-free and comfortable. Emotionally, she knelt down and looked into Rex's eyes. "This dog has the gentlest soul I've ever seen in a working animal. Even after everything he's been through, he's still eager to help. I think this could actually be good for him, give him purpose again. But you need to be prepared that the child might reject him, might scream at him. Rex is sensitive. That could hurt him emotionally." Also consulted with Detective Sarah Williams, who had handled Emma's case. "How's the little girl doing?" he asked. Sarah's expression was grim. "Not well. I've been coordinating with CPS and the foster family. She's barely functional. The trial is coming up in a few months, and I don't know how she's going to handle testifying. If there's any chance this therapy could help her, I think you should take it. That kid deserves a shot at a normal life." On the 4th day, called Dr. Martinez back. "Rex and I are in. Tell me what you need us to do." Felt relief and terror in equal measure. "Thank you. Now I need to present this to and David Johnson, Emma's foster parents. They have to be completely on board, and ultimately Emma has to agree too. We can't force this." The meeting with and David took place at its office that Friday evening. Laid out her proposal in detail, holding nothing back about the risks. His initial reaction was exactly what expected. "Are you out of your mind?" His voice was sharp with fear and anger. "You want to bring the dog that terrorized her, the source of her nightmares, into a room with her. This could destroy her. She's barely holding on as it is." David put a hand on his wife's arm. "Let's hear her out, Patty." Explained her reasoning carefully, showing them Emma's drawings, particularly the recent ones where the monster was getting smaller, where it had a bandage like Rex's injury. "Emma is already making connections. She asked you if the hurt doggy was okay. That question represents a shift in her perception. She's starting to see Rex as a being that can be hurt, that needs care, not as a monster. We need to build on that." But what if seeing him in person triggers a complete breakdown? Eyes were filled with tears. What if we undo all the small progress we've made? It's a real possibility, admitted. Which is why we'll have extensive safeguards in place. The meeting will happen in a large, neutral space, a therapy center I work with that has a quiet, comfortable room. Emma will be able to see Rex through a window first from complete safety. She'll have you and me with her the entire time. We'll move at her pace. If she wants to leave at any point, we leave immediately. No pressure, no force. And we'll be there with Rex, ready to leave if Emma shows signs of severe distress. David leaned forward. What's the best case scenario here, doctor? If everything goes perfectly, what happens? Chose her words carefully. Best case. Emma begins to understand that Rex isn't her enemy, that he's a good dog who was there to help her, not hurt her. She starts to separate the trauma of her abandonment from the presence of the dog. Over time, with continued exposure and therapy, her phobia diminishes. She can be around dogs without panic attacks. She can go to parks, have play dates, live a normal childhood. And maybe, just maybe, Rex becomes a positive association instead of a negative one. And worst case? Asked, though she clearly didn't want to hear the answer. Worst case. The sight of Rex reinforces her fear. She has a severe panic attack that takes weeks to recover from. Her nightmares get worse. She regresses further. The trial becomes even more difficult for her to face. And we have to pursue other, longer-term therapeutic interventions that may take years to show results. The room fell silent, and David exchanged a long look, the kind of wordless communication that came from 20 years of marriage. Finally spoke, her voice shaking. I need to think about this. Can we have the weekend? Of course, said. This is an enormous decision. Take all the time you need. That weekend, barely slept. She watched Emma constantly, looking for signs that might indicate whether this was the right path. On Saturday morning, Emma was coloring at the kitchen table when she suddenly stopped and looked up at. Miss, Emma's voice was so soft it was almost a whisper. Yes, honey. When is the helper doggy coming to visit? His heart stopped. What do you mean, sweetheart? You said Rex wanted to meet me. When is he coming? Knelt beside Emma's chair, searching the little girl's face. Would you like to meet him? You don't have to if you're scared. Emma bit her lip, her small face serious beyond her years. I'm a little bit scared, but maybe he's not so scary now that he got hurt. Maybe he needs a friend like I need friends. In that moment knew. This 3-year-old child, who had survived abandonment and neglect, who woke screaming every night, who couldn't be near any dog without panicking, this remarkable little girl was showing more courage than most adults ever would. Called Dr. Martinez that evening. We're in, let's do this. Over the next week, preparations were made with military precision. The therapy center was reserved. Brought Rex in twice to familiarize him with the space. Worked with Emma daily, using photos and videos to prepare her, always giving Emma the option to say no. We're going to go see Rex on Saturday, told Emma during their session. You remember, he's the big dog with the hurt leg. He'll be in a room and you can see him through a window first. If you want to get closer, we can. If you want to leave, we'll leave. You're in charge, Emma. What happens is completely up to you. Emma nodded solemnly, clutching her one-eyed teddy bear. Will Officer be there too? Yes, he will. He's Rex's best friend. They take care of each other. Like you take care of me? Emma asked. Felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, honey, exactly like that. The night before the meeting, tucked Emma into bed, her heart pounding with anxiety about what tomorrow would bring. Sweet dreams, baby girl. Emma looked up at her with those two old eyes. Miss, I'm brave, right? You're the bravest person I've ever met, whispered, kissing her forehead. Then I can do this. I can meet the helper doggy. As turned out the light and closed the door, she sent up a prayer to anyone who might be listening. Please let this work. Please let this precious child find healing. Please let tomorrow be the beginning of something beautiful instead of another heartbreak. In his home across town, sat on the floor with Rex, gently stroking the dog's fur. Tomorrow's a big day, partner. There's a little girl who needs us, both of us. She's scared, but she's trying to be brave. We need to show her that you're safe, that you're good, that you're here to help. Can you do that? Rex looked up at with those gentle brown eyes and placed his head in his lap, a gesture of trust and readiness that knew well. Whatever happened tomorrow, they'd face it together. The stage was set. The impossible meeting was just hours away. Two wounded souls, one human, one canine, were about to come face to face with their shared trauma. What happened next would change both their lives forever. Sometimes the path to healing requires the courage to face our deepest fears. Tomorrow, a 3-year-old girl and a retired police dog would discover if love and gentleness could triumph over terror. Saturday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine streaming through kitchen windows, a perfect spring day that felt almost mocking given the anxiety churning in her stomach. She'd been awake since 4:00 a.m., going over every possible scenario in her mind. What if Emma had a complete breakdown? What if this destroyed the fragile trust they'd built? What if she was making the biggest mistake of her fostering career? Emma came downstairs at 7:30, already dressed in the purple dress with butterflies that had laid out the night before. Her hair was neatly brushed, and she clutched her one-eyed teddy bear against her chest. She looked so small, so vulnerable, yet there was something different in her eyes this morning, a spark of determination that had never seen before. "I'm ready," Emma announced in her quiet voice. "I'm ready to meet Rex." Knelt down, her hands trembling as she adjusted Emma's collar. "Remember, honey, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. If you get scared and want to leave, we leave. No questions asked. You're in charge today, okay?" Emma nodded seriously. "I'm in charge, but miss, I think I want to be brave today." David drove them to the Riverside Therapy Center, a modern building designed specifically for children's therapeutic services. The facility was neutral territory, not a hospital, not a police station, just a calm, safe space. Dr. Martinez was already there, having arrived an hour early to ensure everything was perfect. The main therapy room had been carefully arranged. Soft, indirect lighting created a warm glow. Comfortable cushions were scattered on the floor. A child-sized table held coloring books and crayons. Large windows looked out onto a small garden, and in the adjacent observation room, separated by a large window with curtains that could be opened or closed, and Rex waited. Had barely slept either. He'd spent the night alternating between hope and dread, wondering if this was the right thing to do. Rex had sensed his partner's anxiety and stayed close, his warm presence a comfort. This morning had carefully groomed Rex, brushed his coat until it shined, and fitted him with a soft blue therapy vest instead of his old police harness. Rex needed to look approachable, gentle, non-threatening. When David and Emma arrived, Dr. Martinez greeted them warmly. "Good morning, Emma. You look very pretty today. Are you ready to start?" Emma nodded, her grip on the teddy bear tightening. They entered the main therapy room first, with the curtains to the observation room closed. Dr. Martinez spent 15 minutes just talking with Emma, doing some coloring, helping her feel comfortable in the space. Sat close by, offering silent support. "Emma, in the room next door, Rex and Officer are waiting," Dr. Martinez said gently. "Rex can't see you yet because the curtains are closed. Would you like to see them first before they see you? That way, you're in control. You can look, and if you feel scared, we can close the curtains right away." Emma's breathing quickened. Her small hands began to shake. Will Rex know I'm looking?" "Not unless we open the curtains more. Right now, you can peek through, and he won't even know you're there." Emma thought about this for a long moment. Could see the internal battle playing out on her daughter's face, fear versus curiosity, trauma versus courage. Finally, Emma slid off her chair and took a tentative step toward the window. Dr. Martinez opened the curtains just a crack, maybe 2 inches. Through the gap, Emma could see into the adjacent room. There sat Officer on the floor, and beside him lay Rex. The German Shepherd was resting calmly on a soft mat, his injured front leg stretched out, his head on his paws. He wasn't wearing the intimidating police gear from that night. He looked ordinary, Just a dog, slightly graying around the muzzle, with gentle eyes and a peaceful demeanor. Emma stared for a full minute without speaking, held her breath. Then Emma's tiny voice broke the silence. "He's smaller than I remember." Dr. Martinez smiled. "Sometimes when we're scared, things seem bigger than they really are. What else do you notice about Rex?" "He has a bandage thing on his leg, like me when I fell." Emma had scraped her knee the previous week and had worn a bandage for days, proud of her. "That's right. Rex got hurt helping someone, just like you got hurt that day at the playground. He's healing like you're healing." Is he sleeping?" Emma asked. "No, he's just resting. He's a calm dog. Would you like me to open the curtains more so you can see him better?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. Dr. Martinez slowly opened the curtains another few inches. Rex remained still, though his ears twitched slightly at some sound. Sat quietly, not looking toward the window, giving Emma the space to observe without feeling watched. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Emma just stood there studying Rex from her position of safety. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her death grip on the teddy bear began to loosen. "He's not scary like this," Emma finally whispered. "Why was he so scary before?" This was the moment Dr. Martinez had been waiting for, the cognitive opening where Emma might begin to reframe her memory. "Emma, can you tell me what scared you most that night?" Emma's voice became smaller. "It was dark, so dark, and I was so hungry and cold, and I called for Mommy but she never came. And then there were lights and big noises and that huge dog came and I thought he was a monster coming to eat me because I was bad." His hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. Emma had never articulated her trauma so clearly before. Dr. Martinez knelt beside Emma. "Oh, sweetheart, you weren't bad, you were never bad. Your mommy made a mistake, a very, very big mistake, and Rex didn't come to hurt you. He came to find you because Officer was looking for you. Rex's job was to help children who were lost and scared. He was trying to save you." "Really?" Emma's voice was full of doubt and hope. "Really? Would you like to hear Officer tell you about that night?" Emma nodded. Dr. Martinez opened the door to the observation room and called in. He entered carefully, leaving Rex in the other room for now. Knelt down to Emma's level, his eyes kind and understanding. "Hi, Emma, do you remember me from that night?" Emma shook her head. "Well, I remember you. I got a call that a little girl might need help, so Rex and I came as fast as we could. When we found you, you were so brave. You were all alone in the dark, but you didn't give up. And Rex, his job is to find people, especially children. He's found lots of lost kids and brought them back to their families. That's what he was trying to do for you. He wanted to help you feel safe." "But I screamed at him," Emma said, guilt creeping into her voice. "You were scared. Anyone would have been scared. You didn't do anything wrong, Emma." Rex understood. He wasn't mad at you. He was worried about you. Emma processed this information, her young mind working to reconcile her nightmare with this new narrative. "Can Rex see me now?" she asked suddenly. Everyone in the room froze. This was happening faster than anyone had anticipated. "Do you want Rex to see you?" Dr. Martinez asked carefully. Maybe just a little bit." Dr. Martinez opened the curtains fully. Now Rex could see into the room where Emma stood. The German Shepherd's head lifted, his ears perked forward with interest. His tail gave a small, gentle wag, but he didn't stand up. He didn't bark. He simply looked at Emma with those soft brown eyes, his expression somehow conveying patience and kindness. Emma stared back at Rex. 30 seconds passed, a minute. The adults barely dared to breathe. Then Emma took one small step closer to the window, then another. She was now only a few feet from the glass separating them. Rex's tail wagged a bit more, but he remained lying down, as if he understood that sudden movements might frighten her. "He remembers me," Emma whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "I think he does," said softly from behind her. "Would you like to meet him? You don't have to touch him or get close. We could just open the door and you could see him from across the room." This was the pivotal moment. Everything hung in the balance. Emma turned to look at, seeking reassurance, nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm right here, baby, whatever you want to do." Emma turned back to Rex. She studied him for another long moment and then, in a voice that was stronger than anyone expected, she said, "Okay, I want to meet Rex, for real this time." Dr. Martinez led Emma and into the observation room while David watched from the doorway, his phone ready to record what might be a breakthrough moment. Remained on the floor with Rex, speaking softly to his partner. "Remember, buddy, gentle, patient, let her come to you." Emma entered the room and immediately pressed herself against legs. She was 10 feet from Rex, the same distance that had separated them in that dark apartment 4 months ago. But this time, the lights were on. This time, Emma was safe, fed, loved. And this time, Rex wasn't a monster in the darkness but a gentle dog in a therapy vest. "Hi, Rex," Emma whispered. Rex's tail thumped against the floor, but he didn't move toward her. "He's saying hi back," explained. "He's happy to see you, but he's going to stay right here until you decide if you want to get closer." Minutes passed. Emma didn't move, just watched Rex breathe, watched his tail wag, watched him look at her with those patient eyes. Then Emma did something that made everyone's heart soar. She sat down on the floor. Not close to Rex, but sitting down, making herself Rex's size, no longer poised to flee. "Miss said you got hurt by a bad man," Emma said to Rex, as if the dog could understand every word. "Did it hurt a lot?" Answered for Rex. "It did hurt. He was very brave, just like you've been brave." "I'm not very brave," Emma said quietly. "I was scared of you, Rex, I'm sorry." And then said something that would echo in that room forever. "Emma, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Being brave means you're scared, but you try anyway. And look at you, you're here. You came even though you were scared. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen." Emma considered this. Then slowly she began to scoot forward on her bottom, 6 inches, a foot, 2 feet. She stopped 5 feet away from Rex, still maintaining her safe distance but closer than before. "Can I ask Rex a question?" Emma said. "Of course," replied. Emma looked directly at Rex with a seriousness that was heartbreaking in a child so young. "Rex, are you a good dog, not a monster?" Rex tilted his head slightly, that universal dog expression of attentiveness. Then he did something remarkable. He rolled partially onto his side, exposing his belly, the most vulnerable position a dog can take. It was a gesture of complete submission, of trust, of peace. His voice was thick with emotion. "Emma, when a dog shows you his belly, it means he trusts you completely. He's telling you he's safe. He's saying he would never hurt you." Emma stared at Rex in his vulnerable position. Something in her face shifted, the last wall of fear beginning to crumble. Without warning, tears began streaming down her cheeks. "You were trying to help me," she sobbed. "That whole time you were trying to help me and I thought you were bad. I'm sorry, Rex, I'm so sorry." And then Emma did something that made everyone in the room weep. She crawled forward on her hands and knees, closing the distance between herself and Rex. She stopped just inches from him, and with a trembling hand, she reached out and touched his fur. Rex remained perfectly still, barely breathing, as if he understood the magnitude of this moment. Emma's small fingers sank into his soft coat, and she felt warmth, gentleness, life. Not a monster, just a dog who had been trying to save her. "You're soft," Emma whispered. "You're really, really soft." Then she collapsed against Rex, her tiny body shaking with sobs, 4 months of terror, trauma, and pain pouring out of her. And Rex, this incredible dog who had saved countless lives, who had been injured protecting his partner, who had lost his career but not his gentle heart, wrapped his head around Emma's small body and held her while she cried. Was sobbing. David was crying. Dr. Martinez had tears pouring down her face. couldn't see through his own tears. It was the most beautiful, heartbreaking, triumphant moment any of them had ever witnessed. After several minutes, Emma's sobs quieted. She pulled back to look at Rex's face just inches from her own. "Hi, Rex," she said again, but this time with a small, tremulous smile. "Thank you for finding me that night. Thank you for helping me." Rex's tail wagged harder, and he gently licked Emma's cheek. One soft, tender kiss that said everything words couldn't. Emma giggled, the first genuine laugh anyone had heard from her since her rescue. "That tickles." She spent the next hour sitting beside Rex, petting him, telling him about her teddy bear, reading him a picture book she'd brought, and slowly transforming from a terrified child into just a little girl sitting with a friendly dog. The monster from her nightmares had become her friend. As they prepared to leave, Emma hugged Rex one more time. "Can I see you again?" she asked. Smiled through his tears. "Anytime you want, Emma. Rex and I aren't going anywhere." In the car ride home, Emma was quiet but peaceful. Glanced in the mirror to see Emma looking out the window, a soft smile on her face, her teddy bear held loosely in her lap instead of clutched in terror. "How do you feel, sweetheart?" asked. Emma thought for a moment, then said something profound. "I feel like the monster is gone now. There's no more monster, miss, just a nice doggy named Rex." That night, for the first time in 4 months, Emma slept through until morning. No screams at 2:00 a.m. No nightmares, just peaceful sleep, her teddy bear beside her, dreaming of a gentle German shepherd with a hurt leg and a heart full of love. The healing had begun. From the ashes of trauma, something beautiful had emerged. A little girl had faced her greatest fear and found a friend. A retired police dog had discovered a new purpose, and everyone who witnessed it knew they'd seen something miraculous, proof that love, patience, and courage can heal even the deepest wounds. The weeks following Emma's breakthrough meeting with Rex were nothing short of miraculous. And David watched in amazement as the terrified, withdrawn little girl they'd been caring for began to emerge from her shell like a butterfly from a cocoon. The transformation wasn't instant, healing never is, but it was undeniable. Emma's nightmares didn't disappear completely, but they changed. Instead of waking up screaming at 2:00 a.m. every night, she now woke only 2 or 3 times a week, and when she did, she would whisper, "Miss, I had a scary dream, but then Rex came and made it better." The monster in her nightmares had been replaced by a protector. Dr. Martinez explained that this cognitive reframing was exactly what they'd hoped for. Emma's brain was literally rewiring its trauma response. 2 days after their first meeting brought Emma back to see Rex, then 3 days later, then it became twice a week. Each visit, Emma grew more confident, more joyful. She would run into the therapy room calling Rex, Rex, and the German shepherd would greet her with gentle enthusiasm, his tail wagging, his whole body wiggling with happiness. Notice that Rex seemed younger during these visits, more energetic, more purposeful. The depression that had settled over him after his retirement was lifting. Emma was healing Rex just as much as Rex was healing Emma. During one visit in early May, Emma brought her coloring books and sat on the floor beside Rex, narrating her pictures to him. "This is you, Rex, see. You have your hurt leg with the bandage, and this is me, and we're friends. And these are flowers because flowers are pretty and friends give each other pretty things." Sat watching them, his heart full. "You know what, Emma? Rex is officially going to become a certified therapy dog. That means his new job is to help kids who are sad or scared feel better. You're his first official friend in his new job." Emma's eyes went wide with pride. "Really? I'm his first. That makes me special." "You're very special," confirmed. "You and Rex helped each other. That's what friends do." But as Emma's healing progressed, a shadow loomed on the horizon. Trial was approaching. The prosecutor, James, had been preparing his case meticulously. The evidence against was overwhelming. Security footage, medical reports, neighbor testimonies, the condition of the apartment. Public defender had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but in what seemed like complete denial of reality had rejected it, insisting she'd done nothing wrong. Detective Sarah Williams met with and Dr. Martinez to discuss Emma's role in the trial. The prosecutor wants to use Emma's recorded statement as part of the evidence, Sarah explained, her expression troubled. But given her age and trauma, Judge has ruled that Emma won't have to appear in person. However, we need to create a victim impact statement, something that shows the jury the human cost of actions. Emma is doing so much better, said carefully. I'm terrified that forcing her to relive that night will undo all her progress. Dr. Martinez had been thinking about this extensively. I have an idea, but it's unconventional. What if we record Emma's statement with Rex present? We've seen how much security and comfort he provides her. If she has Rex beside her, she might be able to talk about what happened without completely herself. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. A therapy dog present during a victim's testimony recording. I've never heard of that, but I'll talk to the prosecutor and the judge. Given Emma's unique circumstances and how much she's improved with Rex's help, they might allow it. 2 days later, Judge Helen reviewed the unusual request in her chambers. The 62-year-old judge had presided over countless child abuse cases in her 20 years on the bench, and each one took a piece of her soul. But she'd also seen the remarkable progress reports from Dr. Martinez about Emma's recovery. This is highly irregular, Judge said, reading through the psychological evaluations and therapy notes. But I've learned that sometimes irregular is exactly what justice requires. If this child can provide testimony with the support of the therapy dog that helped save her life, then I'm approving it. Schedule the recording. The recording session was set for a Wednesday afternoon in a child-friendly interview room at the county courthouse. The room was designed to be non-threatening, soft colors, comfortable furniture, toys in the corner, equipped with high-quality cameras that would capture Emma's statement without her having to face the actual courtroom. Emma arrived holding his hand, wearing a yellow dress with daisies. She wasn't scared because had explained that Rex would be there. Sure enough, and Rex were already in the room, waiting. Emma's face lit up when she saw her friend. Rex, you came to help me be brave. Rex's tail wagged enthusiastically, and Emma immediately sat down beside him on the floor, her small hand resting on his back. The forensic interviewer, a specialist trained in questioning child witnesses, introduced herself as Ms. Sarah. Emma, I'm going to ask you some questions about when you lived in the apartment with your mommy. Is that okay? Emma nodded, her fingers digging slightly into Rex's fur, not hurting him, just grounding herself. Can you tell me what it was like living there? Emma was quiet for a moment and almost intervened, but then Emma began to speak. Sometimes it was okay. Mommy would make mac and cheese and we would watch TV, but then it started being bad. Mommy had a new friend, Jake, and he was mean. He yelled a lot, and Mommy started going away a lot and leaving me alone. What was it like when you were alone? Emma's voice got smaller. Scary, really, really scary. It was dark because the lights didn't work anymore, and I was hungry. I would cry and cry for Mommy, but she didn't come. I thought maybe I was bad and that's why she left. Rex sensed Emma's distress and gently pushed his nose against her hand. Emma paused, took a breath, and continued. I thought maybe if I was really, really quiet and really, really good, she would come back, but she didn't. I was alone for, I don't know how long, a lot of sleeps. I drank water from the bathroom sink, but then the water stopped, and there was no food, and I was so cold. Tears were streaming down his face. Had to look away, his jaw clenched. Even the forensic interviewer, who had conducted hundreds of these interviews, had to blink back tears. Emma, can you tell me about the night the police came? I was in the corner by the couch. I couldn't cry anymore. I was too tired. And then there were lights, bright lights, and voices. A man said Detroit police, and I was scared because I didn't know if I was in trouble. And then I saw Rex. Emma turned to look at the German Shepherd beside her. I thought he was a monster, a huge, scary monster coming to get me because I was bad. I screamed so loud, but I was wrong. She hugged Rex around the neck. Rex wasn't a monster. He was a hero. He found me. He, an officer, saved my life. The transformation in Emma's narrative was profound. 4 months ago, she would have described Rex as the most terrifying part of that night. Now she understood the truth. "Emma, how do you feel about what your mommy did?" the interviewer asked gently. This was the hardest question, and Emma's face crumbled. I feel really sad. I loved my mommy. I still love my mommy, but she did a really bad thing. She left me all alone and I could have died. Miss and Dr. Martinez taught me that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't bad. Mommy made a mistake, a really, really big mistake. And now I live with Miss and Mr. David, and they would never leave me alone. They love me and they keep me safe. Is there anything else you want to say? Emma thought for a long moment, then looked directly at the camera with a wisdom that shouldn't exist in a 4-year-old. I want other mommies and daddies to know that kids are really important. We need to be loved and taken care of. We need grown-ups to keep us safe. And if you can't do that, you need to tell someone who can help. Don't just leave your kids alone. Please. The interview concluded, and Emma immediately buried her face in Rex's fur, exhausted from reliving her trauma. The dog wrapped around her protectively, providing comfort without words. Knelt beside them. "Emma, you were so brave. Rex is so proud of you. I'm so proud of you." Emma looked up, her face tear-stained but peaceful. "Was that good? Did I help?" "You helped more than you know," said, gathering Emma into her arms. "You told the truth, and that's the most important thing. The judge and the jury will hear your words and they'll understand what happened to you." Over the next 2 weeks, prosecutor incorporated Emma's testimony into his trial preparation. He also compiled the medical reports, the photos of the apartment, the security footage of leaving, and testimony from neighbors, police officers, and medical professionals. The case was airtight. Attorney made one final attempt at a plea deal, showing the recording of Emma's testimony. For the first time since her arrest, something broke through's denial. Watching her daughter, the child she'd abandoned, describe those days of terror while hugging a therapy dog shattered something inside her. She wept as she watched, finally confronting what she'd done. "I was so high, so messed up," sobbed to her attorney. "I didn't think, I didn't mean. Oh God, what did I do to my baby?" But it was too late for remorse to change the charges. The trial would proceed. Received notification that he'd been called to testify about the rescue. He would need to describe the condition of the apartment, Emma's state when they found her, and the immediate actions taken. More importantly, the prosecution wanted to establish the timeline, proving that had deliberately left Emma alone for at least 4 days, possibly longer. The night before the trial was set to begin, visited Emma and Rex had their regular therapy session. Emma was playing with building blocks, constructing what she called Rex's house. "Emma, there's going to be a big meeting starting tomorrow, a trial, where a judge and some people called a jury are going to decide what happens to your mommy because she left you alone," explained carefully. "You don't have to go. You did your part by making that video, but I'm going to be there and I'm going to tell them about the night Rex and I found you." Emma's hands stilled on the blocks. "Will you tell them that I'm okay now, that Rex helped me?" "I'll tell them everything. I'll tell them how brave you are, how strong you are, and how you've healed." "And will Rex be there?" Emma asked. Hadn't planned on bringing Rex to the courtroom, but looking at Emma's hopeful face, he reconsidered. "Would you like Rex to be there? I could bring him." "Yes, because Rex is part of the story. He's a hero. Everyone should know that." Overhearing the conversation, felt a sudden inspiration. "Dr. Martinez, what if Emma came to the courthouse just for the final day, not to testify but to be there when the verdict is read? She's strong enough now, and if Rex is there with..." Dr. Martinez considered this carefully. It could be empowering for her, to see that justice is being served, that the system protected her, and having Rex there would provide security. But we'd need to prepare her carefully, and we'd leave immediately if she shows any signs of distress. The plan was set. The trial would begin on Monday, May 18th. Would testify. Emma's recorded statement would be played for the jury, and on the final day when the verdict was read, Emma would be there, with Rex, and with the courage she'd found through her healing journey. As drove home that night, Rex sitting calmly in the passenger seat, he reflected on the incredible transformation he'd witnessed. A little girl who had been broken by neglect and trauma had found her way back to wholeness. A dog who had lost his purpose had discovered a new calling. And somehow, in the midst of tragedy, something beautiful had been born. "We've got one more job to do, partner," said to Rex. "One more time we're going to help Emma. And this time we're going to show her that justice wins, that good people protect kids, and that she never has to be afraid again." Rex's tail thumped against the seat, and could swear the dog understood every single word. The trial was about to begin, and with it, the final chapter of Emma's journey from victim to survivor, from terrified child to brave little girl who had faced down her demons and won. Justice was coming, and this time a 3-year-old girl wouldn't face it alone. She'd have an army of people who loved her, and a 4-legged hero who'd proven that sometimes the best healing comes with fur and a wagging tail. The Wayne County Courthouse stood imposing against the late May sky, its limestone columns and grand architecture representing the weight of justice itself. Inside Courtroom 4B, the final day of trial had arrived. 3 days of testimony had painted a devastating picture of neglect, abandonment, and a mother's complete failure to protect her child. Prosecutor James had methodically built his case. Medical experts about Emma's condition, the severe malnutrition, dehydration, the psychological trauma. Neighbors described hearing Emma's cries for days, their guilt palpable as they admitted they'd waited too long to call for help. Detective Sarah Williams walked the jury through her investigation, the security footage of leaving with suitcases, laughing, never looking back. The photos of the apartment, the empty refrigerator, the filth, the darkness, were projected on screens, making several jurors visibly ill. But nothing had prepared the courtroom for Emma's recorded testimony. When her small voice filled the room, describing the days of darkness, hunger, and fear, grown men and women wept openly. "I thought maybe I was bad and that's why she left," Emma's voice said from the speakers, and sitting beside her public defender collapsed forward, sobbing into her hands. Officer had on day 2, his voice steady but his eyes betraying deep emotion as he described finding Emma. She was the size of a 2-year-old, though she was 3. She couldn't cry anymore, she was too dehydrated. She was hypothermic, barely responsive. Another day, maybe even hours, and we would have been too late. The defense had tried to paint as a victim herself, of addiction, of an abusive boyfriend, of circumstances beyond her control. But the prosecution's rebuttal was devastating. Addiction doesn't force you to pack suitcases and leave your child to die. Circumstances don't prevent you from making a single phone call to child services, to a family member, to anyone. Made a choice. She chose drugs and a man over her daughter's life. Now, on this final Friday morning, the jury had deliberated for just 2 hours before reaching a verdict. The speed of their decision spoke volumes. Judge Helen sat at her bench, her silver hair pulled back, her expression grave. She'd presided over heartbreaking cases before, but this one had affected her deeply. She'd watched Emma's testimony alone in her chambers and had cried for an hour afterward. The courtroom was packed. Media representatives filled the gallery, knowing this case had captured the public's attention. Sat at the defense table, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the formal setting, her face pale and drawn. She'd aged a decade in 6 months. What nobody in the courtroom knew was that at that very moment was driving Emma to the courthouse. Dr. Martinez sat in the backseat beside Emma, ready to intervene if needed. Emma wore a pink dress with white flowers and held her now-worn teddy bear. She was nervous but determined. "Remember, sweetheart, we can leave any time you want," said for the 10th time. "You don't have to stay if it's too scary." "I want to be there," Emma said quietly. "I want to see that grown-ups keep kids safe. That's what Dr. Martinez said, that the judge makes sure kids are safe." Was already at the courthouse, standing in a side hallway with Rex. The German Shepherd wore his official therapy dog vest, looking calm and professional despite the unusual setting. Had gotten special permission from Judge for Rex to be present, given his role in Emma's rescue and recovery. As Judge prepared to bring the jury back in, her bailiff approached the bench. "Your Honor, there's a situation. The child, Emma, is here with her foster mother and therapist. They're requesting permission to be present for the verdict." Judge's eyes widened. She called both attorneys to the bench for a whispered conference. "The victim is here. She's 4 years old. This is highly unusual, but given the circumstances, I'm inclined to allow it if both parties agree. She has her therapist with her and can be removed immediately if necessary." Nodded immediately. "The prosecution has no objection, Your Honor. Emma has shown remarkable courage throughout this process." Attorney hesitated, then looked back at his client. His face had gone white, but she whispered something to him. He turned back to the judge. "The defense has no objection. Ms. She wants to see her daughter even from a distance." "Very well. Bailiff, please show them to the back row. And someone alert officer. I understand his K-9 partner has been instrumental in the child's recovery. They may enter as well." 5 minutes later entered the courtroom holding Emma's hand. Dr. Martinez followed close behind. They moved quietly to the back row and lifted Emma onto her lap so she could see. Emma's eyes were wide, taking in the formal setting, the judge in her black robes, the jury box, the American flag, the official seal of Michigan. Then entered with Rex, and Emma's face lit up. "Rex," she whispered loudly, unable to contain her excitement. Several people in the courtroom turned, curious about the child's voice and the therapy dog now walking down the aisle. Guided Rex to the back row and sat beside. Rex immediately positioned himself between and Emma, and the little girl's hand instinctively went to his fur, finding comfort in his familiar presence. Heard Emma's voice and turned in her seat. For the first time in 6 months she saw her daughter. Emma looked healthy. Her cheeks had filled out, her hair was shiny and clean, she wore a pretty dress. She looked loved, cared for, safe. Everything had failed to provide. Face crumpled, and she quickly turned away, unable to bear the sight of what she'd nearly destroyed. Judge entered and everyone stood. "Please be seated. Has the jury reached a verdict?" The jury foreman, a middle-aged man who had been visibly affected by the testimony, stood. "We have, Your Honor." "What say you?" "On the count of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of criminal neglect, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of child abandonment, we find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Collapsed in her chair, her shoulders shaking. Her attorney put a hand on her arm, offering what little comfort he could. But Judge wasn't finished. "Before I proceed to sentencing, I want to address something unusual happening in my courtroom today." She looked directly at the back row. "Officer, would you please approach the bench and bring your partner?" Stood confused but obedient. He walked down the aisle with Rex, the dog's limp more pronounced in the large space. Emma watched them go, her hand clutchings. "Officer, I've reviewed the case file extensively. You and your K-9 partner Rex found Emma on January 18th, potentially saving her life. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," replied. "And I understand that Rex was subsequently injured in the line of duty and had to retire." "Yes, Your Honor. He was stabbed protecting me during an arrest 2 months after Emma's rescue." Judge nodded. "And yet, despite his injury and retirement, Rex has played a crucial role in Emma's psychological recovery, serving as her therapy dog." "Yes, Your Honor. Emma was initially terrified of Rex, of all dogs, due to the trauma of that night, but through therapy, they've formed a bond that's helped her heal. Judge smiled, a rare sight in her courtroom. Officer, it's not often that we see such a complete circle of healing and justice in these cases. Your service, and Rex's service, to this community and to Emma specifically deserves recognition. Then she did something unprecedented. Emma, would you come forward, please? His heart stopped. Emma looked up at her, questioning. Dr. Martinez leaned in. It's okay, honey, the judge wants to meet you. I'll come with you. Emma slid off's lap, clutching her teddy bear. Dr. Martinez took her hand and together they walked down the center aisle. Every eye in the courtroom was on this tiny girl in her pink dress, her steps small but steady. When she reached the front, she saw Rex and her face transformed with joy. Rex, Emma cried out, unable to contain herself any longer. She broke free from Dr. Martinez's hand and ran toward the German Shepherd, her teddy bear flying behind her. The courtroom held its collective breath. This wasn't courtroom protocol, this wasn't procedure, but no one moved to stop her. Emma crashed into Rex, throwing her small arms around his neck. The dog immediately wrapped around her, his tail wagging, his body language radiating gentle protectiveness. And then, in the profound silence of that courtroom, Emma spoke two words that would be remembered by everyone present for the rest of their lives. Thank you. Those two simple words, spoken with such pure gratitude, such innocent love, carried the weight of everything that had happened. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being scared with me and then showing me I didn't have to be scared anymore. Thank you for being my friend when I thought I was all alone in the world. The courtroom erupted. Jurors openly sobbed, several buried their faces in their hands, their shoulders shaking. The stenographer stopped typing, tears streaming down her face. The bailiff, a 20-year veteran who'd seen everything, turned away to compose himself. Spectators embraced each other. Media representatives forgot about their notepads and cameras, too moved to document the moment. Judge removed her glasses and wiped her eyes unabashedly. Prosecutor's face was wet with tears. Even stoic attorney was crying. And watched her daughter embrace the dog who had saved her life, and something inside her shattered completely. All the denial, all the justifications, all the numbness she'd wrapped around herself crumbled away. She saw what her choices had cost, what she'd nearly destroyed, and what she'd lost forever. Her sobs were audible throughout the courtroom, primal sounds of grief and guilt and unbearable regret. Knelt beside Emma and Rex, his own tears falling freely. He placed his hand on Emma's small back. Rex says thank you too. Thank you for being his friend. Thank you for helping him find his purpose again. Emma looked up with those blue eyes that had seen too much suffering but were now filled with hope. Officer, you're a hero. You and Rex are the best heroes ever. Judge allowed the moment to continue for several minutes, understanding that this transcended legal proceedings. This was healing happening in real time. Finally, she gently spoke. Emma, thank you for your courage. You've shown everyone in this courtroom what true bravery looks like. Dr. Martinez guided Emma back but Emma insisted on walking beside Rex, her hand on his back the entire way. When they reached their seats, Emma climbed onto his lap but kept her eyes on Rex, who had positioned himself protectively in front of them. Judge composed herself and continued with the sentencing. You have been found guilty on all counts. The evidence presented shows a pattern of neglect that culminated in the abandonment of your 3-year-old daughter, leaving her alone without food, water, or heat for at least 4 days. You packed your belongings and left with full knowledge that Emma was alone and helpless. Stood, barely able to support herself, as the judge continued. However, I've also reviewed the letters you've written from jail, the rehabilitation programs you've enrolled in, and the psychiatric evaluations showing genuine remorse and understanding of what you've done. I've watched you today, seeing your daughter for the first time in months, witnessing your complete breakdown when she thanked the dog who saved her life. Judge paused, her voice heavy with the weight of her decision. I hereby sentence you to 8 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections, with credit for time served. However, I'm recommending you for the intensive rehabilitation program at the women's facility in Ypsilanti. Upon completion of this program and demonstration of sustained sobriety, I will consider supervised visitation with Emma, but only if Emma's therapist and foster parents agree that it's in her best interest. Collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. 8 years. Emma would be 12 when got out. She'd miss her daughter's entire childhood. Furthermore, Judge continued, I'm ordering you to complete parenting classes, substance abuse treatment, and psychological counseling. I hope you use these 8 years to become the mother Emma deserved from the beginning. But make no mistake, Emma's welfare comes first. Always. The judge's gavel came down with finality. Court is adjourned. As the courtroom began to empty, Emma stood on his lap to see better. She watched as officers led her biological mother away in handcuffs, turned one last time to look at her daughter, her face a mask of grief and regret. Emma watched her mother being taken away, her expression serious. Then she turned to, Miss, is my mommy going to learn to be better? His voice was gentle. She's going to try, sweetheart. She's going to get help so she can understand why what she did was wrong. Good, Emma said simply, because kids need mommies who keep them safe. Dr. Martinez taught me that. Outside the courtroom stood with Rex as media representatives surrounded them. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward. Officer, can you comment on what just happened in there? Looked down at Rex, then back at the reporters. What you witnessed today was something remarkable. A little girl who had every reason to be broken found the courage to heal, and a dog who lost his career protecting others found a new purpose protecting the heart of one very special child. Sometimes justice isn't just about punishment, it's about healing, second chances, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. 6 months later, on a crisp November afternoon, the Detroit Police Department held a special ceremony. Rex was being officially recognized as a certified therapy dog, one of the first retired K-9 officers in Michigan to transition to this role. The ceremony took place in the department's community room, packed with officers, city officials, and families whose children had been helped by Rex in his new role. Emma stood at the front of the room, wearing a red velvet dress, her hair in pigtails. She'd been given the honor of presenting Rex with his therapy dog certification and medal, and David sat in the front row. They'd officially adopted Emma 3 weeks earlier, and she now legally bore their last name, Emma Johnson. When Emma's turn came, she stepped up to the microphone with a confidence that made everyone who'd known her story marvel at her transformation. Knelt beside Rex, and Emma approached them with the certificate and medal. Rex is my best friend, Emma said into the microphone, her voice clear and strong. When I was really scared and thought I was all alone, Rex found me. He saved my life. And then, when I was scared of him because of the bad things that happened, he helped me not be scared anymore. He showed me that heroes are real and that even when bad things happen, good things can happen too. She placed the certificate in his hands, then carefully draped the medal around Rex's neck. The room erupted in applause. Rex's tail wagged proudly, and he gently licked Emma's cheek, making her giggle. I love you, Rex, Emma whispered, hugging him tightly. Thank you for being my hero. As cameras flashed and people applauded, watched her daughter, this remarkable little girl who had survived the unthinkable and found her way back to joy, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for the officer and dog who'd found her in time. Gratitude for the therapist who'd had a crazy idea. Gratitude for the judge who'd delivered justice with compassion. And gratitude for Emma herself, whose courage had inspired everyone who'd witnessed her journey. That night, as tucked Emma into bed in her pink bedroom filled with toys and books and love, Emma asked a question. Miss, I mean Mommy. She still sometimes forgot she could call Mommy now. Yes, baby. Do you think other kids who are scared and sad will get to meet Rex, so he can help them like he helped me? I know they will, honey. Rex has a very important job now, helping kids heal. Emma smiled, hugging her teddy bear, the same one-eyed bear that had been with her through everything. That's good. Everyone should have a Rex. Everyone should have someone who doesn't give up on them, even when they're really, really scared. Kissed Emma's forehead. And everyone should have the courage you've shown, sweetheart. You're my hero, too. As Emma drifted off to sleep peacefully, without nightmares, stood in the doorway watching her. A year ago, this child had been hours from death in a dark, freezing apartment. Now she was safe, loved, healing, and helping others heal too. Sometimes the worst tragedies give birth to the most beautiful redemptions. Sometimes the monsters in our nightmares become our greatest protectors. And sometimes 2 words, just 2 simple words spoken with pure gratitude, can capture the essence of everything that matters: resilience, love, healing, and hope. Thank you. Those 2 words had changed everything in that courtroom. They'd reminded everyone present why they did what they did, why officers risk their lives, why therapists fight for broken children, why judges deliver justice with mercy, why communities come together to protect the vulnerable. Emma Johnson had faced the darkness and emerged into light. Rex had lost one purpose and found another, had saved a life and gained a friend. And an entire city had been reminded that even in the face of unthinkable cruelty, the human capacity for healing and love could triumph. The story that began with a terrified 3-year-old screaming at a police dog ended with that same child, now 4, confidently placing a medal around that dog's neck and declaring him a hero. It was a story of trauma transformed into healing, fear into trust, and darkness into hope. And in a women's correctional facility in Ypsilanti, sat in her cell reading a letter from Emma's therapist, detailing her daughter's progress. Would spend years in prison, years she deserved, years she'd used to become better. She'd written to Emma, letters that saved in a box for when Emma was old enough to decide if she wanted to read them. In one letter had written, "I can never undo what I did. I can never give you back those days of fear and pain. But watching you hug that dog in the courtroom, hearing you thank him, seeing you heal, that's given me hope that maybe someday you'll be okay. Maybe even better than okay. You're stronger than I ever was, baby girl. You're the hero, not me. I'm so sorry, and I'm so proud of you." The sun set over Detroit, casting golden light across the city where this remarkable story had unfolded. In homes across the community, children slept safely in their beds. Officers continued their patrols, protecting the vulnerable. Therapists like Dr. Martinez worked with traumatized kids, giving them tools to heal. And somewhere in that city, a little girl named Emma slept peacefully, her adopted parents watching over her. A therapy dog named Rex having given her the greatest gift of all, the understanding that she was loved, valued, and would never be alone again. Sometimes, against all odds, the broken can be made whole. Sometimes heroes come with 4 legs and fur. And sometimes, in the darkest moments, a little girl's courage can remind an entire community what truly matters. This was Emma's story, but it was also Rex's story. A story of how one night of horror transformed into a journey of hope that touched thousands of hearts and proved that love, in all its forms, can heal even the deepest wounds. The end, and the beginning of everything beautiful that would follow. From darkness to light, from terror to trust, from brokenness to wholeness. This is what redemption looks like. This is what healing feels like. This is what happens when heroes, both human and canine, refuse to give up on those who need them most.